Today and this week, I specifically want to focus on impulse waves. So that's what we're going to be studying in today's lesson. So let's go ahead and get started. And first, what I'd like to discuss would be just some of the key, characteristics and guidelines, but also to share with you some of the Fibonacci proportion. These are idealized Fibonacci proportions, specifically, related to impulse wave development. So this is an impulse wave. It's a 5-wave move. We use numbers to identify motive waves. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now, when it comes to the corrections, we'll use letters to identify the substructure of those patterns. Now, some of the cardinal rules, or the big rules that we never want to break, would be wave 2 never retraces more than 100% of wave 1. Wave 3 can never, ever be the shortest impulse wave of waves 1, 3, and or 5. Now, it doesn't have to be the longest, but it can never be the shortest. And then you have wave 4. Wave 4 may never end in the price territory of wave 1. And then, of course, we have our 5th wave move up. Now, still, after 30 plus years, I will say this, without question. I'm more of a believer now in the Elliott Wave principle than I ever have, and I've been counting waves for over 30 years. And to really learn the intricacies, the rules, the guidelines, the nuances. There is no better book out there, in my opinion, than the Elliott Wave Principle, written by A.J. Frost and Robert Prechter. So let's go back to the impulse wave. Now, as you know, the Fibonacci sequence is an essential ingredient to counting waves. And the reason we believe this as Elliottians is because when Ralph Nelson Elliott wrote, I believe in one of his books, one of his works, Nature's Law, he stated emphatically that the Fibonacci sequence was indeed the mathematical basis of the wave principle. So as Elliottians, we're always doing calculations in order to attempt to identify either retracements and or multiples. So this is an idealized impulse wave, and once you have your 5-wave move up, you have your 3-wave decline for wave 2. The most common Fibonacci retracement for wave 2 is a 618 multiple of wave 1. When it comes to wave 3, we typically look for a 1.618 multiple. If wave 3 is exuberant, and it most often is in the equity markets, then you'll be looking for something perhaps larger, 2.0 or even 2.618 multiples. Once wave 3 is complete, we see a 4th wave move, and the most common Fibonacci retracement for a 4th wave is a 382 multiple of wave 3. And then we go on to wave 5. Well, one of the guidelines which governs the development of impulse waves is the guideline of wave equality, which simply states that in a 5-wave move, 2 waves tend toward equality and 1 wave will be extended. So, and again, in the equity market or the indices, whenever you have an impulse wave, wave 3 is typically going to be your longest wave. And when that occurs, we tend to look for wave 1 and wave 5 to pretty much be proportional, be equal in length. Now, one thing that I always, consciously want to reinforce when it comes to Fibonacci multiples and Fibonacci retracements is that these are guidelines. Okay, these are not absolutes. These are not rules. And the reason I say that is because on more than one occasion, I have seen wave 2 only come back to a 50% retracement of wave 1. Sometimes I've seen wave 2 come back to a 786 multiple of wave 1. Sometimes I've seen wave 3 actually exceed a 2.618 multiple, and sometimes, albeit rare, I'll actually see wave 3 fall short of a 1.618 multiple. And the same thing with wave 4 and wave 5. Remember, these are idealized. Okay, say in a perfect world, if we're going to be, say, looking at the wave principle and substructure of impulse waves in a quote-unquote academic, environment, this is what we would consider to be idealized wave structure and also, too, idealized Fibonacci proportion. So now let's begin to take a look and examine some of the, complexities and variations of impulse wave development. And I've sketched those out in the next slide. Now what you have here are impulse waves, but you have three different types of impulse waves. And the way we identify them are simply based on where the extended wave actually occurs. Now over here to the far left, you have your idealized impulse wave. Waves 1, 2, big 3, pull back in 4, and then up in 5. This is what you're going to encounter, say 60–80% of the time. This is what we tend to look for. This is, my go-to whenever I'm working impulse wave development. Now in the middle diagram, you'll notice that wave 1 is the longest wave. Then you have your wave 2 pullback, your wave 3. Notice again the rules and guidelines are adhered to. Wave 2 does not terminate below the origin point of wave 1. Wave 4 does not end in the price territory of wave 1. Wave 3 is not the shortest impulse wave of waves 1, 3, and 5. And then you have your push higher in wave 5. So in this impulsive wave, wave 1 is the extended wave, and then waves 3 and 5 tend toward equality, or they're proportional to a certain degree. This type of structure is rare. Okay, but when I do encounter it, again, this is more anecdotal and more from experience than anything else. But when I do encounter this type of impulse wave, it's typically in the wave 3 position of a larger impulsive structure. So the place I would typically see this kind of advance would be in the wave 3 portion of, say, a 5-wave move in an index or an individual stock. Now over on the far right, we have another type of impulse wave. Notice again, waves 1 and 3 tend toward equality, but in this instance, wave 5 is the extended wave. Now this tends to occur most frequently, not in the indices or equity markets, but actually in commodities, because this move up is really kind of driven by fear. And it's sometimes referred to as like a buying climax. There are several examples of buying climaxes in many of the commodities I follow. For example, oats or wheat, or say recently in the meat complex with live cattle and feeder cattle. So now, just because this is an extended fifth wave, and just because I say it happens frequently or most often in the commodity markets, does not mean it cannot happen in an index or an individual stock. But if I were to see something like this in, say, XYZ stock, I would be more inclined to think, okay, hey, that's 1, 2, 1, 2, and then this is wave 3 of 3. But if I'm looking at a commodity market, then I would say, okay, this is probably an extended fifth wave. But these are some of the variations of the core impulse wave development, or the core idealized impulsive structure we work with as Elliottians.